And I looked down and I'm like, that's it. That's the sign. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reinvigorate the shoe industry in America by making shoes here myself. They will always be fixable. They will get better and more comfortable with time. They will hold their shape, and they will be made here in San Francisco. And that was the beginning of it.
Welcome to the Trades Show. This is a show about modern craft work. Each episode, I step into the workshops of skilled artisans across industries, from metalsmithing and butchery to woodworking and shoe cobbling. I'm your host, Briana Ottoboni. The Trades Show explores what it means to be a craft worker, the revival of the artisan trades, and the return to what makes us human, the ability to make with our hands. Because in every trade, there's a rhythm. The whir of a lathe, the hiss of a solder, the slice of a blade. And through these rhythms, we return to ourselves. Because making isn't just what we do, it's who we are. I'm so glad you're here. Today on the Trades Show, I sit down with Frank Beneduci, American bootmaker and founder of Beneduci Shoe Design and Instruction. In this conversation, we trace Frank's journey from growing up in a shoemaking town in Massachusetts to leaving a career in advertising to revive his family's trade. We talk about what it means to carry forward a craft on the edge of disappearing and how technology might support its survival. Our conversation comes to you from inside Frank's workshop, where every pair of boots is designed, patterned, and handcrafted by him. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be in your space.
Thanks, yeah.
So I always start off with the same first one or two questions. So first, how would you describe your craft, or how would you describe what you do?
I would say that I am an American bootmaker who tries to make boots in the fashion of the 1950s and 60s when American shoemaking was at its peak. And what I mean by that is all the great boot brands like Wolverine and Red Wing and Thousand Mile and other brands in the East, Alden for sure. You know, they're manufacturing companies. They're not just a little guy doing stuff. So I really love that. And I use all the machines that they use that were built around that. Like that's what we do. So that's my focus. I can make fine shoes through a partner. Me and a partner, like we may talk about later, we can make really beautiful shoes, but I prefer manufactured style boots, and although we're not doing big productions, but we use those techniques.
Okay, well, I would love to talk about that a little bit more, because that's kind of how you started. You grew up in a shoemaking capital of America. Can you just talk a little bit about your origin story and what it was like to grow up around that?
Yeah, so when I was a little kid, we had an uncle named Uncle Frank, who is my name, Frank, and same last name. And he was a bachelor, and he lived in the family house in Brockton, Mass. And we would go visit him, and he would drive us around the city, and he would constantly be talking about, like, this is the old Weiner shoe factory. This is where, they used to make great shoes here. And down the street is, New Balance. They used to manufacture here, but they don't anymore. And, there are brands that we don't hear of anymore, like Tom McCann and Hush Puppies and all these brands that were all out of the East. And the ones that remain now are sports shoes. And that would be FootJoy, New Balance, and Reebok. Now, they don't make anything there anymore because of the cost of making, but they did. And that's when it was at its heyday.
What do you think led to its decline?
Oh, boy. The decline of the shoe industry in America is cost. Labor cost and workforce, too. Basically, what happened is after the 50s and 60s, people started to become highly educated. And the factory jobs weren't what people wanted. They wanted financial jobs.
Yes.
They wanted financial jobs. They wanted, and then technology too coming in. Certainly the advent of the PC earlier, like, because that was a long time ago when Mac came out, right?
Yeah.
In the Commodore computer, anyway, like the 70s. So it was a slow decline, and now there are only H.H. Brown, which is the parent company of brands like Wolverine and not Red Wing, but other brands that are still working. They are making shoes offshore. So that was the decline. So there's no industry left, so there's no training going in because there's no factories.
Yes.
There's a couple floating around but they're not doing work for like a brand like mine that wanted to get shoes made. So I think it was economics. That was it, yeah.
And what was it like to grow up with such a strong shoemaking background in your family?
Well, the shoemaking background was all lore and stories. And because my grandfather, Tullio Beneduci, was a tailor, and he was a really good tailor. And the tailors and the shoemakers kind of work hand in hand because someone who gets a beautiful suit also wants a beautiful pair of shoes. So they all knew each other. But the reason why the background is so strong is because of my Uncle Frank driving around the city as it was eroding and talking about how great it was when it was a hard-working, blue-collar town. And there was a famous ad in the 70s. I don't know if you would know this, but it would be great if we could find this. There was someone throws a piece of trash out the window of a car, maybe, or something like that. And there's an Indian, like literally like American Indian. And he sees it, and a tear comes down his eye. And that's like what my Uncle Frank was feeling when he was looking at these eroding, dilapidated old factories that were defunct. So that's what really stuck with me. And then the other thing that happened when I was thinking about changing my life after the digital boom happened, and I wasn't producing anything. I wasn't really giving photographers business that we all wanted cheap and fast and free, when everything had to be viral. The viral industry put me out of advertising. That was a horrible thing.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. I know you mentioned it briefly, but that you started in advertising.
Well, yeah, and I was, when I say, I was an award-winning art director, I really focused on print, TV, billboard, all the really nice stuff. And I was successful as a lot of people, you know what I mean? And then at the height of my powers, the internet came and we all started talking viral. And 5 years after all of this stuff about viral, I realized that I was no longer paying people to do work. We were not producing anything of substance, and it just wasn't for me. Somebody else is going to have to do great work in this space, but it's not me. So I wanted to find something tangible that I could make again, that you could hold in your hands or you could see.
Why was that important to you?
Because it's my legacy and because it makes people happy. Do you know what I mean? Like, why do we watch the TV ads at the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it makes people feel something.
Something makes them happy, right? Well, when people put on a great pair of shoes or they know the person that made those shoes and they can tell that story, it just works for them. And that, coupled with the history of Brockton, Massachusetts, that seemed the right thing to do. But I remember the day I decided I was going to do it. And it was simple as this. My college friend came to visit me in San Francisco, and we were getting ready to go out for dinner, and we were getting dressed or whatever, and I opened up my closet, and shoes just spilled out. Spilled out. And he goes, "My God, you got 1,000,000 shoes. What's up with that?" And I looked down, and I'm like, that's it. That's the sign. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reinvigorate the shoe industry in America by making shoes here myself. And that was the beginning of it. Well, that kind of fell apart because of lack of workforce. There just isn't workforce.
Yeah. Is there any way you think that we could bring that workforce back?
Yeah, we talk about it a lot, me and this gentleman this other shoemaker down in Burlingame. And the way it would happen is automation.
Yes.
And because of automation, there are companies in Italy that make ready-made factories that one person can do 4 functions because of the machinery, and what you need is 4 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily reviving the human workforce, but using
That's
technology
gone.
to make. Wow.
That's gone.
You think that?
It is gone. I'm sorry to say that.
Makes me sad, but yeah.
It is. It's just, why would why would someone become a factory worker when they can work for FedEx, get better benefits, and make more money?
But then there's an
delivering
opportunity
packages. Mhm.
that you're describing of bringing back that, what you don't have when you're working on a factory line is you're not necessarily the one bringing those creative visions to life. And so it does sort of democratize people's ability to start a shoe line or start shoe production and be the creator of it and do it with less people, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's the only way. So it would be a really, really high-end factory that only needs a few people, and you can train those people. And it's better for those people because they're not doing handwork as much as they used to, so their body doesn't fall apart. Because shoemaking is very physical.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. Something that I love so much about the artisan trades is that it is this connection between creativity and physicality. It's something that we can do because we're in bodies. But at the same time, there's so much wear on your body when you're working on these machines or you're just hunched over a workbench.
Yeah, that's the problem with shoemaking, is hunched over, because to be a really good shoemaker, you can't stand away from the needle. You can't stand away from the knife.
Yeah, it's so
you have to be
detailed.
right on top of it so that you don't make a mistake. So you're always bent over, like it's right in your face. Because I couldn't imagine stitching a shoe like from here, standing. I wouldn't put the needle where it needs to go. It'd be a mess.
So how do you were just describing bringing more automation to this, how does that support people's bodies?
Well, the machines have gotten so much better as far as taking the function away, the knowing how to run a machine perfectly. The machines do a better job of it. I mean, the factory I speak of it's like, take a warehouse and all the machines are in a line, and you go and you stand and you go from one machine to the other, to the other, to the other, okay? And at the end of it, out comes a finished product. It doesn't sound very sexy, but really what it is, it would bring back the manufacturing might to America, like in a way. And not everybody wants to be the old cobbler with the crooked neck and the hum rim glasses and all that stuff.
I wish.
I look at me, even though I'm doing it now, I can't help it because I love making shoes. I would also love to be the captain of industry that brings back manufacturing to America and does use all the latest and greatest machines. For instance, I'm gonna last a pair of shoes and it takes about an hour and a half. With a machine, it takes 7 seconds now.
Wow.
And it's done. So that the hammering and all that stuff has gone away because, that's what beats on people's bodies. But still, you're still designing and making it here. You're still paying someone to make here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then that would bring back the leather tanneries. That would bring back other things that support the industry.
Everything's so interconnected. I had a conversation with a butcher who has a butcher shop in Bernal Heights, and she was describing how all of these small, what are they called? The butcher houses. There used to be small and independent, and now there's just these huge basically factories.
Slaughterhouses.
Yeah, slaughterhouses, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah,
But,
no, I know.
you know, they used to be in like Mission Bay.
Yeah.
And now they're outsourced to these huge things, but bringing back more of them, but smaller ones, and like the tanneries and how
Yeah.
that all is just so
Yeah.
interconnected.
And when you talk about tanneries, this is kind of a shameless plug here. I really try to buy everything made in America, like for leather. It's not possible for certain leathers, but my lining leather is just this beautiful, supple cowskin that is tanned in Milwaukee. And then that same city has a wonderful upper leather tannery that is so small that the prices are very reasonable. And I'm not going to say the names because I don't want anyone else to know about them, because that's it's kind of my ace in the hole. You know what I mean? They make beautiful leather that is similar to Horween, which is well known all around the world. This leather is just as good, great leather, but it's tiny little tannery. And the gentleman came out to visit me, so I want to buy my leather from them. And then there's Italian leather and French leather, which is great leather.
What do you see in the difference between American leather and some of...
Well, American leather is all about boots, okay? And the two things that American leather does the best in the world is cordovan, which is horsehide, and that's Horween, and they also use calf skin. And then the other one that Americans do really good is boot leather, because boot leather is thicker. The industry supports it. And chap leather, strapping leather, because we used to make the best saddles in the world and all that stuff. Now, it's hard to do that because, you know, all leather comes from the beef industry. They don't just throw it away. Thank God they don't.
Yeah.
That'd make it even worse to buy beef from a slaughterhouse. So, but basically the reason why French calf and Italian leather is the best is because if you've ever been to Italy, they don't have factory farms. They have these cows sitting in the French Alps in these beautiful grassy knolls. And so the leather is less scratched, less diseased. Well, American leather, you go down the 5 and you see these pens of cows bumping into each other, and they've got to be fighting and all. Stressed and all that stuff. So the leather is rough. So what the American bootmakers have had to do, or leather tanneries, is infuse it with oil. They've had to learn how to clean the leather really good and put these rustic finishes on it that hide that, and that's work boot. And it looks good. So that's part of it. They care for their animals better in Europe, so the leather's better. You know, simple as that.
Can you talk a little bit about your time in Italy? You talked about the day that you decided that you wanted to start making shoes, but what happened after that?
So I decided I had to go to somewhere and learn, and there was a school in Oregon that everybody goes to, and it's no longer functioning just because the gentleman retired. Bonnie and Will's up in Oregon was for making shoes, but it was custom. And I wasn't really interested in that at the time. I wanted to learn how to like make shoes, like in a factory setting.
Like commercial.
Yeah, like figure out how I could make patterns that work and start there. So I went to a pattern making school in Italy that if I was in Italy, I would be able to get a job at a factory as a modelist. And what a modelist does is a designer comes in and says, I'm feeling blue today. I'm feeling blue. I want it to be bluish feeling. And they scribble on the page this rough outline and you don't even know what it is. And they hand it to the modelist at the factory. And the modelist at the factory comes back with ideas, made shoes. And they print the designer's name on it. No, that's one way, you know, like, sure, there are designers that definitely design and are really buttoned up. But a factory modelist is like the designer at the factory, the in-house designer.
Making the ideas
come to life.
Real, yeah.
Real, exactly. Yeah. So I went to that school, and then I went to the School of Hard Knocks. For the last 25 years, I've been going to that school. Do you know that school?
No.
The School of Hard Knocks? You don't know what that is?
No.
See, this is a time thing. The School of Hard Knocks is about learning by failing, by just doing it, you know? And I've been going to the School of Hard Knocks now for 20 years. I'm an adjunct professor at the School of Hard Knocks. So that's what that means. You learn. And that was in America. I drove to Colorado with a U-Haul behind to buy machinery, and along the way I stopped at any cobbler that I could find or bootmaker and walked in the door and just asked questions. And some people were really nice and some people didn't have the time, and you know, I still do that. I'm doing that now. I do that all the time.
Yeah, and then you were working in LA.
That was probably the place I learned the most. And one of the things about LA that people don't understand is, if you take away Hollywood, LA is still a hardworking industrial city that can get anything done. Hollywood is such a small part of it. It's a big part, but LA is so much deeper than that. You know, it's like, where do you get things machined? LA. Where do you get shoes made? LA. So there's a factory there. I'm not sure it's still running, only because the gentleman who would do it is getting to the age that he would retire, and there'll be no one who will take over. But it'll die with him. And so his factory made firemen's boots and police boots, and he had a contract for the LA Police Department, and then he would fill in the gaps with designers like me. And so work boots was the way to go down there. And then he got to the point where there were so few places that he actually started to make shoes for designer brands like Anina Bing, and he made some boots for Ralph Lauren. But I decided that I needed to do it myself because all of my logos would be crooked. The quality just didn't live up to my expectations. And I remember the day that I said I have to move away from this factory and try to do it myself was when I was in the factory and Ralph Lauren's head of factory, one of the guys that comes in to inspect the boots, was telling me a story that they bought all these boots from this factory and the heels fell off. They were getting customers come back that the heels fell off. And I said to myself, if Ralph Lauren can't get what he wants, what are the chances of Frank Beneduci getting his logo straight? And that drove me nuts. The quality just wasn't there for me. The factory owner I loved and adored. He was a great guy, and he let me hang out in the factory, and that's where I probably mastered in the School of Hard Knocks, was at that factory for the 3 years. I learned how to do it and also how not to do it through that factory. So my dream after that was to start a factory of my own. And I had it going on in the Mission. I had a little space, and I had 3 workers that were really good. But the economics of San Francisco, 2 of them left just because they couldn't live here anymore. And then the third one, who was the best of all the shoemakers, got deported by the first Trump administration. So what I did is I had a 1.5 years worth of orders, and I shut the doors, and for 1.5 years, I made every shoe myself. And the last day of the year when I finished, I shut my doors for good. I sold the building, and I started to just make shoes as fun.
Yeah.
Well then, 3 years of fun, and I really missed it. And so that's why we're here. I have a part-time job, and I love it. I play golf, and the part-time job is in the golf industry, but I'm just a guy to all the people that come in. But here I'm Beneduci, the shoemaker. People love it. I love it. They can't believe I can make shoes.
There's an identity.
Yeah, that's who I am. You know?
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it again. Me and this guy. I'm going into business with this other guy, and we're going to give it a try.
Yeah.
And the shoes are going to be beautiful. Higher quality than I've ever made before in my life.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. This is such a fun time to do this because it feels like you're at this turning point where you're entering the next chapter of your business.
And I hope this chapter, what this chapter really should be, is all the baggage and all the mistakes that you collect over the history of your career. It's all gone now. Meaning, I'm starting from scratch, and I hope I don't make those mistakes. Like, I have an opportunity to do it better and be more successful because of all the mistakes, everything I've learned.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it one more try. Yeah. And we're gonna do it here in America, here in San Francisco, and at the very least, we're gonna probably always offer handmade, machine-made, handmade and machine-made are kind of synonymous because you have to do it with your hands, even though the needle is a machine.
Yeah.
You know, bespoke is different. Bespoke is all done by hand and hand tools. We don't want to do bespoke. We want to do American-style manufacturing, handmade. And then, hopefully, we can make productions all around the world that are smaller, cheaper, but still you can buy the handmade for $899 or for $399, the ones made in Portugal but designed by us. That would be my dream.
I love that. And so you're starting from scratch, but you do have this wealth of knowledge
Right.
that you're coming to the table with. And so what are the few things that from everything you've learned you want to make sure that you don't do again, or that you really want to make sure you implement into this next iteration?
Well, yeah, number one thing. If I don't like you and I don't have a good feeling about it, forget it. I can tell when someone's going to be really difficult, and the minute they start designing themselves, then I know it's not for me. I want people to love what I make for what it is.
Be part of the vision.
Yeah, and I'm not going to chase other people's ideas to make everyone happy. I used to try to make everybody happy. If you don't like these boots, you come in and see my shop, and if you love them, buy them. If you don't worry about it. It's okay. And then I'm also going to make shoes. Me and this gentleman, Hugo, we're going to make shoes that we like. And we're going to try to streamline the process. This is the second thing. You can't buy a ton of stuff. You can't always be buying material. You have to use your material. So we're going to only have certain leathers that we buy. And that's it. And if someone wants goat skin, I'm sorry, we can't do that because, only one person wants that. And you have 47 square feet of that leather that costs $500, and you're selling the shoe for $400 or whatever.
Yeah, simplifying your supply chain.
Exactly. In the same token. And don't offer too many styles, too. Specialize in one style. And don't try to be a fashion house and follow the trends.
How do you feel like your style has evolved over the years, or has it?
Well, it has. It has evolved in the sense that when I first started, I had to make work boots in America because all the machinery, all the material is all about that. So I had to make work boots, but I love brands like John Varvatos. I love brands like Marseille in Italy, which is sort of the boot that's on the table there. That's like a Marseille thing. So not as a business, but as a personal thing, I'm going to make shoes like that. But as a business, we're going to make American-style work boots and dress boots in the vein of all the great makers and Alden shoes and Red Wing and stuff like that. But do it here. That's the difference. And do it with leather. All leather. Because that's the key to really good shoes.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, so Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom's and Macy's figured out that if you put on a pair of shoes, the second you try them on and they're really comfortable, lightweight, you'll buy them. So what that did is it triggered all of the shoe brands to use non-leather materials because it's lighter weight.
'Cause you have to break leather in.
Yeah, exactly. It's lighter weight and it feels comfortable. Foam and stuff, all that stuff. Okay. Well, the problem with that is it doesn't last. That's why everything's throwaway. And when you see someone walking down the street and they have a pair of boots on and the front toe of them is wrinkled, is misshapen, that's because that's a plastic infrastructure that keeps the shoe shape. Like this, okay? See the shape? This is leather. It will never lose this shape because it bounces back. Plastic cracks. Melts, cracks, degrades. Leather gets better in time, especially for the footbed, because leather also takes the shape of the human body because of sweat, heat. It's moldable. It takes your shape. And what happens is it gets more comfortable with time. But we've been conditioned in the new world to be comfortable right away. Part of the reason is because of sports shoes and foam, and injection molding. So now they make dress shoes with that foamy sole.
Yeah.
That's because people can't handle breaking in a pair of shoes.
How do you break in your shoes?
Well, that's a great question. What you do, and I can tell you this because it's no secret, but what you do is you take a bottle of water and you fill it up 70% water, and then you buy alcohol, meaning like isopropyl alcohol. You fill it in the bottle and you put a sprayer top on it, and you spray the whole inside of the shoe. Get it in there. You spray it, you soak it. You soak it. But the key is not to wear it until it dries. And what happens is it's not wet to the touch when it dries, like 2 days.
Yeah.
But the leather has soaked in the moisture and is malleable to your foot. And that's what you do.
Smart.
Yeah. But you got to let it dry, and you can't heat it. You
Okay.
can't, because heating of leather,
I feel like that used to be a thing where you would like blow dry a shoe.
that might be okay. Blow dry, so, but what you don't do is you don't put them under a hot radiator, a
Yeah.
hot heat source, because the shoe's put together with glue and then stitched. So glue is a huge factor in it. What happens is high heat delaminates contact cement. So they fall apart. And that is why when you see people glued on construction shoes, that's why they fall apart, because people don't know how to take care of them. They leave them in their hot car. They leave them in the sun, so they fall apart. That's why Goodyear Welted and Blake Rapid constructions won't ever fall apart, because they're sewn together.
Yes.
The major components are sewn together.
I know you see that so much with modern shoes is the like appearance of stitches, but then they're actually just glued, or it's just
Yeah.
the top layer.
Yeah, and that's called a faux welt.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a design welt, they call it. Sometimes we do make shoes with a fake welt, but it's always stitched through the footbed into the sole. That's another way to do that. We always sew our welts onto the footbed and then onto the sole. Modern manufacturing of a Goodyear welted shoe is not sewn. It's taped and glued and then sewn. It's not as good. So you can be fooled in Goodyear welt, but that's how they do it fast.
Yeah.
Then you can take the sole off and then sew it back to the welt, which makes it fixable, but it's not the best construction like
Yeah.
they say it is. That's all.
I love this stuff. I could talk about it forever. But
Yeah.
can you, if someone is interested in bootmaking and shoemaking and being part of what is a dying trade, if someone's just curious, what are steps that they can take to pursue it?
Well, believe it or not, you're going to be probably shocked, but if I was a young person today, I would go deep into 3D CAD, because then you could have a career in shoemaking, because you can always marry that stuff with the old. Like me personally, when me and this gentleman get going, if I could learn CAD, I would be the person that does that And then we could marry that with the manufacturing style of the 50s. That would be a great way to do it, because one of the things that would happen to me is, like, if I wanted to get a job as a shoe designer at a company like Ariat, for instance, okay? I know everything about shoemaking, but I probably need to know the CAD to get that job. Because I know all the old ways, I'm not marketable at all to a company.
Got it.
So if somebody wants to get into the shoe industry and make it a career and stuff like that, they should start with the CAD.
Yes.
Because you can always go from that to the old way if you love making shoes by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Like bringing the innovation and
Yeah.
kind of knowledge work
Yeah.
into this industry
Yeah.
in order to really
Yeah.
develop a competitive edge.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. I would do that.
Yeah.
And then what also happens too is, if you get a job in a place like Ariat, you learn the whole industry, and you make connections, and then when you decide you want to make your own production, you've got all these connections that you won't get if you're just a humble shoemaker by yourself. You really gotta love making shoes.
Yeah, I don't always think about that, but I love that you brought that up, the career opportunities in shoemaking that still exist in companies and are
Yeah.
kind of marrying both of the
They are.
old processes and
Yeah, like
technology.
It helps that you know old constructions. It helps, but it's not enough to get you in the door. Why not learn something that will make you relevant? You can still dive into the craft. That's up to you if that's your thing. But then you can go back into the industry if you decide to. It's my
Yeah.
opinion.
No, that's such great advice.
Yeah.
So if someone is listening to this or watching it, what is one thing that you would want them to take away? Either about you, about your story, about shoemaking or bootmaking in America.
What I think I would want them to take away is that Beneduci and Hugo, we make shoes that last a lifetime, get way more comfortable with time, and we make shoes for people who love that aspect of it. They love the fact that they're buying something real, tangible, that they've spent a ton of money on, but it's worth it.
Let's end with your collaboration and kind of the next evolution of Beneduci. We talked a little bit about
Yeah.
the partnership, but
Yeah,
can you dive into that a little more?
Yeah, so one of my old employees came from Mongolia here, married a Mongolian gal that was working in tech, and he was the most amazing shoemaker. His grandfather made shoes for the Mongolian kings and all this stuff. And he walks into my studio, and we start working, and he's fantastic. He's also a trained orthopedist in London. He was the one that got deported from the Trump administration. Well, he comes back, and we've always been dancing around each other, like, how can we get going again? How can we do this again? So he's got a lot of contacts in like China, and I've got a lot of contacts in America. So we're like, let's try to make manufacturing together, see if we can make this happen. So that's sort of where it came from. But the difference between us and every other brand is definitely going to be that every single piece of our shoe is going to be leather where it matters. There might be rubber soles, but the infrastructure will be leather. And what that means is they will always be fixable, they will get better and more comfortable with time, and they will hold their shape, and they will be made here in San Francisco. So hopefully we're going to be ready by Christmas with a whole new line, and we're looking to take pre-orders, because pre-orders is a great idea for business. And we're going to be better because of the quality of the materials.
I love that. Thank you so much for the time to talk today.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
I hope this episode left you feeling inspired and expanded. If you'd like to support the show, the best way is to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with the fellow craft workers or craft curious in your life. You'll find everything we talked about, including links to today's guest, in the show notes. You can follow the show on socials @TradesShow to stay up to date. And if you're listening, you can watch the full video version on YouTube. I would highly recommend. It's a treat. And if you're watching, you can stream the audio wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any questions, feedback, or guest suggestions, please reach out anytime. You'll find my contact information in the show notes or at thetradesshow.co. Until next time, stay creative, curious, and continue to honor your craft.